The case closed 3 times. Each closure was based on incomplete forensic analysis, leading investigators and medical examiners alike to misattribute the cause of death as a result of high-pressure injection misread as trauma. The initial report concluded that the deceased had sustained injuries consistent with being struck by a vehicle. However, upon further examination, it became evident that these wounds were actually caused by an industrial accident at work, specifically from a high-pressure grease gun injection. This type of injury produces patterns resembling tire tracks on the skin, which can easily be mistaken for trauma incurred in a traffic incident if not properly diagnosed. The medical examiner's reevaluation revealed that the pressure exerted by the industrial tool had created distinctive markings consistent with such an occupational hazard. Moreover, this misinterpretation highlights the psychological phenomenon known as pareidolia, where individuals perceive familiar patterns, such as tire tracks, in unfamiliar injuries, leading to erroneous conclusions in forensic investigations. Chapter: Case Background. The incident under scrutiny occurred on a Monday morning in an industrial district of New Orleans. Reports were made to local emergency services at approximately 7:45 a.m. by a security guard who was patrolling the premises of a large manufacturing facility. The guard noticed what appeared to be a human figure lying unconscious near one of the loading docks, with several peculiar marks resembling tire tracks on the individual's torso and limbs. Upon arrival, first responders observed that the deceased was positioned in such a way as to suggest a recent vehicular collision. Initial assumptions were made based on the apparent pattern injuries, which resembled the imprint left by a car's tires during an impact. This misinterpretation led to the case being initially classified as a hit-and-run accident before further investigation revealed discrepancies that hinted at a different cause of injury. Subsequent examination of the scene and subsequent forensic analysis would uncover evidence pointing towards occupational injuries sustained from an industrial grease gun, rather than any form of vehicular trauma. Chapter: Initial findings upon arrival at the scene. First responders noted a vehicle collision resembling a hit-and-run incident involving an individual lying supine in a roadway, exhibiting abrasions and contusions to the lower extremities. The deceased's body was positioned as if struck by a moving object, with no visible entry or exit wounds on external examination. Initial medical assessment documented superficial lacerations consistent with contact with rough surfaces, but no evidence of significant trauma indicative of vehicular impact. The scene was cordoned off for investigation due to the presence of tire marks and debris suggesting rapid egress from the area. The initial manner of death was classified as undetermined pending further forensic analysis. Given the absence of clear lethal injuries and the peculiar nature of the abrasions, which did not correlate with typical vehicular accidents, these anomalies prompted a detailed examination by medical examiners, who noticed patterns resembling tire tracks within skin abrasions, leading to reclassification from accidental trauma to potential occupational injury. Further investigation into the deceased's work history revealed recent use of high-pressure grease guns, suggesting an alternative cause for the unusual wounds observed. Chapter: Forensic investigation at the scene. Investigators collected multiple specimens, including a high-pressure grease gun with residual lubricant traces consistent with the wound's foreign body composition. Microscopic analysis confirmed particulate matter from the tool embedded within the deceased's injuries. Notably absent were any tire marks or debris typically associated with vehicular incidents. The chain of custody was meticulously documented, ensuring no contamination or loss of evidence. Additionally, a security camera recording captured the deceased using the grease gun immediately prior to injury onset, corroborating the occupational cause over an external traumatic event. Upon initial examination of the deceased, a range of tests was conducted to elucidate the nature and origin of the injuries presented. Forensic pathologists undertook macroscopic and microscopic analyses of tissue samples obtained from the affected areas. Histological sections revealed punctate marks consistent with high-pressure injection rather than blunt force trauma. Polymerase chain reaction, PCR, analysis detected residual oils and lubricants within subcutaneous tissues, indicative of industrial use rather than vehicular contact. Gas chromatography mass spectrometry, GCMS, confirmed the presence of polyalpha-olefin grease at concentrations surpassing 50 micrograms per gram of tissue, far exceeding typical environmental contamination levels. Microscopic examination identified characteristic patterns of embolization and hemorrhage, not typically associated with trauma from solid objects or tires. These findings collectively indicated that the injuries were caused by a high-pressure injection event, consistent with occupational use rather than criminal activity. The timeline reconstruction began with an examination of the deceased's injuries, which initially suggested a vehicular incident. Subsequent forensic analysis revealed puncture wounds consistent with high-pressure injection from industrial equipment rather than trauma from blunt force impact. Through microscopic analysis and comparison with similar cases in occupational injury databases, it was determined that the injuries were caused by a grease gun used for lubrication tasks at the deceased's workplace. This finding altered the sequence of events, shifting focus away from an alleged hit-and-run scenario to an accidental industrial mishap. The postmortem interval, PMI, was estimated using biochemical markers and entomological evidence collected at the scene. These methods indicated a PMI consistent with the reported time of discovery rather than earlier speculative timelines based on misinterpreted injuries. This confirmed that any signs of decomposition or insect activity were not indicative of an extended period since death, as initially thought. The timeline reconstruction ultimately contradicted the hypothesis of criminal intent and instead supported the conclusion of an occupational accident leading to fatal injury. The examination of the deceased revealed a high-pressure injection injury consistent with that caused by a grease gun, not vehicular trauma as initially suspected. This finding was critical in reclassifying the nature of the incident from criminal to occupational accident. Forensic analysis identified the distinctive pattern and distribution of subcutaneous fat and tissue damage indicative of a pressurized fluid discharge rather than blunt force or penetrating trauma. Conclusive evidence included microscopic examination revealing foreign particles consistent with grease, corroborated by the absence of tire tread patterns on clothing and skin. Interpretive elements involved recognizing pareidolik tendencies in wound pattern assessment, which can lead to misdiagnosis when not properly scrutinized. An expert would confirm under oath that high-pressure injection injuries exhibit unique characteristics distinguishable from external trauma, thus negating initial assumptions of a hit-and-run incident. Chapter Resolution. The initial examination suggested that the deceased had sustained injuries consistent with a hit-and-run incident, specifically abrasions resembling tire treads on their limbs and torso. However, further investigation revealed an occupational injury, misdiagnosed as criminal activity. High-pressure injection from a grease gun used at the workplace produced wounds exhibiting patterns superficially similar to those caused by tires during vehicular accidents. Upon closer inspection of the deceased's work environment, investigators discovered evidence corroborating the use of high-pressure equipment in their daily tasks. Microscopic analysis confirmed the presence of lubricants and metal shavings consistent with industrial machinery rather than road debris. Additionally, interviews with colleagues provided eyewitness accounts supporting the occupational injury theory, detailing an accident involving a malfunctioning grease gun during maintenance work. Reevaluation of medical records and photographs revealed inconsistencies unexplainable by blunt force trauma alone, but entirely consistent with high-pressure injection. This included entry wounds, smaller than exit points, and internal tissue damage indicative of rapid fluid displacement under extreme pressure. Thus, the central finding was established. The deceased's injuries were definitively caused by occupational mishap rather than criminal act. This case underscores the importance of thorough forensic evaluation to distinguish between similar but distinct injury patterns, and highlights the potential for pareidolia in trauma interpretation among less experienced examiners. This case underscores the critical importance of thorough examination and expertise in distinguishing between occupational injuries and criminal acts. Misidentification due to pareidolia highlights the need for comprehensive training and interdisciplinary collaboration among forensic professionals. The file remains open.